So, if we're just to summarise then, if we're going back over, say, the 10,000 year period, and looking at the evolution of these societies, the ones that become eventually, you know, technologically advanced, for want of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you think are the essential pieces in this jigsaw? We've talked about domestication of animals, possibly that leads to writing. I'm just trying to sort out what your views are on this, and what you think are the most significant things in determining 10,000 years ago how these broad, you know, avenues were developing.
Well, there's a different ways of looking at the problem which don't really exclude each other. My view has always been that the most important thing that explains the advance of technology is sort of the underlying metaphysical assumptions that people have about the connection between them and their environment. If you believe that every tree and every stream and every hill is inhabited by a conscious deity who is jealously guarding his privilege to protect his or her territory, you're going to be very reluctant to build mills and to start new farmland, because there's always the danger that you're going to unleash some angry being upon you who's stronger than you are. This permeates Greek and Roman religion, because there's little gods walking around everywhere, and sure, they have some technological breakthroughs, but every time they do, they are going to have some deep guilt complex about it, like Prometheus had when he stole the fire from the god and was, you know, very severely punished for it. What happens in Europe, in particular in Western Europe, is that slowly but certainly people come to the realization that in fact the manipulation of the physical world is nothing to be ashamed of, is nothing to be guilty about, to feel guilty about. It has to, in fact, if you do so, you're only illustrating the glory of the Creator. That the Creator in His infinite wisdom has created something and put us in the middle of it. And He put it at our disposal. This is sort of a deep Judeo-Christian presumption that's sort of reflected in the book of Genesis, if you think about it. And people, I think, truly believe that. We believe that. I think, our technological success is in large part due to the fact that we believe that this entire physical environment is ours. We can do with it whatever we want, and we can manipulate it for our own benefit. So if we don't like, you know, the virus that causes smallpox, we eradicate it. And if we like whales, you know, when we keep them alive. But we do this for us. We don't do this for the whales, really. We do this for us. We are the center of the universe. This is sort of an, we might call an anthropocentric philosophy. I think that is really a necessary condition for any kind of technological advances to be self-sustaining. Because if you don't have that, at some point you're going to sit down, you're going to say, all right, what we have achieved until now is fine, but we shouldn't press it, we shouldn't push it any further, we should live in harmony with nature. The essence of sustained technological progress is the disruption of the harmony with nature. We don't want to live in harmony with nature. We want to keep disrupting it. That is the Western way of doing things. That is why we are rich and everybody else is not. Because if you're going to live in harmony with nature, you may be happy, but you're going to be poor. If you're going to be like the West is, then you're continuously disrupting nature, you're continuously causing ecological imbalances, and that has a very high price that's a very high price to pay. But it is a price that until now we have been willing to pay, and we're still paying it. And I think that is one of the fundamental ingredients. The second point you may want to think about has to do, I think, with people's basic attitudes toward two things that really matter. The first is the way they feel about previous generations, the amount of respect that they have for the knowledge of their fathers and their grandfathers. Because any act of innovation is an act of rebellion against the people who lived before you, right? You're basically saying, if you invent something, right? So what really counts, I think, is the degree of respect and veneration that we have for the knowledge of our fathers and our grandfathers and previous generations. Every act of innovation is by definition an act of rebellion. When you build a new device or when you try a new technique of any kind, basically you're making an implicit statement that the way your father and your grandfather and everybody before them have been doing it is no good and you can do better. Now this is, in most societies would think of this as an act of disrespect. Some societies are built on the assumption that all of the truth and all the wisdom was revealed to our forefathers, and what the best we can do is interpret their writings. I mean, Jewish civilization is for millennia based on that assumption. We can try to interpret what is written, but the truth was revealed to our forefathers, and we can just add commentary. And as a result, you see until the late 19th century very little technological innovation among Jews. It's maybe not the only reason, but it's a good reason, because Jews tend to be in that regard very respectful. The same is true, say, for Islamic civilization, particularly in the late Middle Ages, when there's a very strong intellectual movement that says the wisdom as it is written in the Quran is the truth and you cannot really add it. So a very fundamentalist, almost literal interpretation of the scriptures. Now there are also technological scriptures, right? Throughout most of the Middle Ages there are certain writings about science like Aristotle or El-Razi in medicine, books that sort of summarize everything that is known in a particular field, and if you suggest something different, then you're rebelling against the great Aristotle. That's enough to put somebody on the stake right then and there. So what I think has happened far more in Europe than anywhere else is a growing notion that previous generations weren't so smart and we're smarter. And now in our own age, we have driven this to almost extreme. Any computer that's 3 years old is no good. We measure technology by its recentness. The more recent it is, the better it is. And so anything made in 1950, including equipment you use to shoot television movies, but almost anything else is basically the newer the better.